Music has always been my passion. I grew up with my mom giving voice lessons in the living room, and I was cranked up in the little baby swing. I was a band nerd, I was a choir nerd. You know how a lot of teenagers throw themselves into conformity and belonging because they don't want to stick out? I took the opposite path. I dyed my hair green, I wore outrageous clothing that didn't match. I pretended that I didn't care because I cared so much. I went to a summer camp, and the community that I found there was so fun and open-hearted that that was actually where I first came out, I think, to myself and to others. And then I went back home and I didn't talk about it. It was easier to pretend that it didn't exist. And then I graduated, walked across the platform on the football field barefoot, and went off to college. Joined a music sorority called SAI just to meet more people, and I met Shannon. Something clicked, and I felt like I had a person and a place in it in a way that I never had before. Turns out a sorority is a good place to meet girls, but we have a bunch of instruments. We have piano, guitar, banjo we can't play, accordion we can't play. Just one of them, you know. We were together for 10 years before we got married. And for a very long time in those 10 years, we couldn't get married. We did not get engaged right away when marriage was legalized for same-sex couples. I was craving the tradition and the ritual, and I wanted the engagement. And then it was Christmas Eve, and we sat down for our Christmas Eve dinner, and she brought me a card, and she had written a proposal.
I knew I'd cry if I tried to say it out loud. So I wrote it down.
And I said, I have something for you, and I went and got the other ring. Yeah, we were looking at the same time, but we weren't talking about it. Yeah. When we talked about how we wanted it to look, we were very purposeful about really including the community.
Oh, I'm so nervous, I can't listen to myself sing.
I now pronounce you wives.
We needed to know what we were going to be announced at the wedding, of like, if we were going to do a new name, that's the time to do it. And so we've joked for a while, like when we invite people over, we'll say, come on over to Shape Polisek. And we're just like, well, what if we just made a new name?
This is the best solution.
To present to you, Beth and Shannon Polisek.
9 months after the wedding, we were at my grandma's house, and she took me aside and said, I have something for you. She was so embarrassed that it came with the bride and the groom. And I love it. My late 80-something grandmother sees us as just as much a part of the tradition, that she had this hand-painted in the middle of Nebraska somewhere. And it's clunky because it's not quite right, but I love that. It was her welcoming us in. I've had a pretty easy go of it. My family's been accepting, my friends have been accepting, but that's not a universal experience. It's very easy for people to put people in boxes and think that you understand who they are because you know one thing about them. Those barriers between us are breaking down, and that's in life outside of work, and that's at work too. The more people know the people in their community, the more stories you hear within your friends and your family or your workplace, the less scary the other becomes, and then the safer it becomes for people to live their full lives and not feel like they have to hide or edit or leave things out.